Hey guys, my name is Matsumo, and welcome to our episode of Sunday Mailbox. This is a video series where you, the viewer, can submit your gaming-related questions, and then I will give my humble opinion on them. To get the formalities out of the way real quick, if you'd like to submit your own question that could be featured in an upcoming episode, you can do so by leaving a comment down below, or by sending me a Facebook or Twitter message. The first question for the day is, what are your thoughts on Maverick already getting nerfed in Siege? So if you're not aware of what he's referring to, basically Ubisoft came to the conclusion very quickly after the technical test servers went live that Maverick may have been a bit too strong. One of the reasons why was because he was able to take out barbed wire, not even at melee range, you didn't even need to be that close, instantaneously with his blowtorch, and he also did it silently. If you wanted to slow down the offensive team and they had a Maverick, not only did you not really know that they were pushing from that angle because he did it quietly, but also just being able to take them out that quickly and that efficiently was a bit too strong. And so the change that they made is that now he has to use, I believe, half of one of his fuel canisters to be able to take out that barbed wire. I don't know about you, but that seems like a fair compromise. Barbed wire should slow down the progress of the offensive team and introduce a gadget that makes practically no noise and is able to just drop them instantly seems a bit too strong. The other adjustment that they're making to it, like we just talked about, is that his blowtorch is really quiet. Now, it's still going to be a silent way for you to open up walls, but they're going to increase that volume slightly. The final adjustment that they made is that he's no longer going to have access to the smoke nade, is now going to have access to flash. He was going to be able to use both claymores or the smoke, and that was a little bit too much utility. And once again, I completely understand why Ubisoft is doing this. The smoke nades are probably one of the best utilities that you can have in Rainbow Six Siege. Some would argue maybe frags might be a bit better, but if you're trying to plant the diffuser, if you're trying to play the objective, or just move from point A to point B, smoke nades are incredibly valuable, and to give someone who already has a lot of utility in the form of his primary gadget, this amazing secondary, seems like a bit too much, and so they made that compromise. All in all, I'm really excited about all these changes, not just because I think that Maverick was going to be a little bit too good in some situations, but mainly because I believe that this is the first time that Ubisoft has ever taken the feedback of the community on the technical test servers and made significant changes to those operators before they go live for everyone to use. If we look back at past seasons, that was not the case. When Lion was first introduced, everyone was convinced that he was overpowered, everyone was making these critiques, and no changes were made. And while to Ubisoft's credit, the community can be wrong in some situations, just look back at Jackal. When Jackal was first announced, everyone was convinced that his scan ability was going to be overpowered. Being able to pinpoint the exact location of someone seems like it'd be a crazy ability. After a couple of months though, people realized it's fairly mediocre, and his gadget actually got a buff. And so I can understand why Ubisoft might be a little bit hesitant on making large sweeping changes to an operator until the meta is established. That said though, I just love the fact that Ubisoft has made these changes so quickly. And so overall, I think this is fantastic news. Hopefully this is an indication of more to come, and Ubisoft is going to be making more of these speedy changes in the future when they do realize something is busted. And so I cannot complain whatsoever. The next question comes from Julius, and it is, what is your opinion on the new recoil changes coming to the SMG 11 and 12? Well, at least with regard to the SMG-12, I feel like it's been a long time coming. This thing has basically been overpowered ever since it was first introduced, and it rivals or even outcompetes a lot of the primary weapons in the game. Because of that blazing fast RPM, manageable recoil, at least on PC, I'm not sure what's like on console, and fairly high damage, you just drop people practically instantaneously. This is one of the reasons why Dokkaebi and Vigil have been so prominent lately, and it's because of this secondary. A lot of the times, people don't even use their primary. I was one of them. When I played as Dokkaebi, a lot of the times, I just switched on over to my secondary because I knew it was just way more reliable at taking people out. That seems like a very odd way at designing and balancing your operators. And so I'm completely on board with it having a lot more recoil, and that's exactly what's happening on the TTS. Now, I'm sure people will be able to figure out how to use this, and it will still be competitive. It's not going to be useless, but it's nowhere near going to be the powerhouse that it was before, and I think that's a good direction that Ubisoft is taking. As for the SMG-11 though, That's where I'm more on the fence. On the one hand, I never really felt like it was nearly as overpowered as something like the SMG-12. Don't get me wrong, it's always been very strong, but the thing that has held it back and in my eyes made it relatively well balanced is the fact that you don't have a lot of rounds to work with. If you miss those first couple of shots, that first volley, you're pretty much out of luck. And also, if you need to take out multiple consecutive targets directly in front of you, you're also going to have a difficult time doing so because of that limitation. On the other hand, though, as we all know, Smoke uses this basically as a primary, and no one actually uses his primary weapons as they're intended. And so I feel like Ubisoft is moving in a different direction with these secondaries and actually wants them to be secondaries. They're supposed to be backup. They're not meant to actually overtake the power and usefulness of all the primary weapons in the game. And so I can see why Ubisoft increased the recoil across the board. Now, the counter argument to this is, well, why is Smoke getting a nerf then? Because this is a direct nerf to Smoke. He really wasn't overpowered. And I agree with you. This is the reason why I'm on the fence with these changes, because it feels like now he's going to be way less viable than he was before because the meta did revolve around him using that weapon. And so my hope is that in the next couple of weeks or months, Ubisoft is going to watch Smoke's pick and win rate. They're going to realize that either he is in a good spot, maybe nothing's going to change, he's going to be in a good place, or they realize that, yeah, he is going to need a buff, and instead of rebuffing the SMG-11, they actually buff his primary weapons and make them a viable option. I know that might seem like a crazy concept because the entire meta has revolved around that secondary, but I really think that they should try to balance the operator around the primary weapons and not the secondaries. Of course, only time will tell, but I'm really hoping that if that is what happens, that's the direction that they go with. The next question comes from William, and it is, what do you think about Ubisoft adding a hybrid ACOG/holo sight into Siege? This would allow players to be both versatile at long range and short range. Well, I think you basically just answered your own question for why this isn't in the game, and that is because you would be strong at both long range and close range. There would be literally no reason to actually use the other sights exclusively when you have this option. When you choose a sight, you are picking sort of a playstyle and you're giving yourself strengths and weaknesses. If you decide to go with the holo, you want to be a little bit more up close so you can actually see the enemy and land those headshots. If you're using the ACOG, you don't necessarily need to be across the map, but you want to make sure that when you do actually get into an engagement with someone, they're not 2 feet in front of you, because then you're going to be at a disadvantage. As soon as you add in the ability to swap between those optics, you completely eliminate those strengths and weaknesses, and now all you have is strengths. I mean, yes, every once in a while, you might come into contact with someone with the wrong sight up, like that is still, of course, going to occur, but those moments are going to happen less frequently. Now, I know that some people might bring up Glaz as an example and say, hey, if he works, why can't it work for everyone else? Well, you have to remember that that's literally what Glaz does for his gadget. If you look back when he was first introduced, he didn't even have an Iron V. Literally, the only thing he brought to the table was the ability to switch between a close range optic and a long range one. That was Glaz. And so all in all, I just don't think that this is necessary. I think it would trivialize the customization. There would really only be one option, and this would be it. And so I just don't think, especially from a gameplay balance viewpoint, that this would work in Rainbow Six Siege. The next question is, do you think that Ubisoft should focus less on customization items and actually fixing the hit reg and other problems in the game? Well, I definitely agree with you that Ubisoft should be doing everything they can to make Rainbow Six Siege a flawless experience. Fixing the netcode, the bugs and glitches, these should all be top priority. But I think you're mistaken if you think the person that is creating the artwork for weapon skins, camos for all of the operators, the different charms in the game, those are not the same people that are sitting down and working on the network for the game. A lot of these artists probably don't even know the first thing on how to resolve network-related issues, or how to go on in and fix bugs and glitches on operators that are phasing through walls. Some of them might have that expertise, but they're artists and their expertise is in a different field. And so you just have to remember that. You can't just allocate your resources from one department and say, hey, everyone should go work on this, because that's just not the way that game development functions in reality. Now, you could argue that they could hire more people, and in the long term, I think that is something that Ubisoft should probably invest in. If this game continues to grow, absolutely, they should be having more people to solve the the issues that pop on up if they are making more money with those cosmetic items. But you can't just assume that that is going to be a quick process. You can't just hire anyone. You then need to teach them the ropes and the systems that everyone has in place over at Ubisoft, and so it would be a long-term solution. And so while I do agree with you that Ubisoft should be doing everything they can to resolve these issues, it's a much more complex problem than just trying to switch and move around different resources. But yeah, guys, that is about it for today's episode of Sunday Mailbox. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know what you thought about what we discussed in today's video. Do you think it's great that Maverick is getting a nerf? Do you think that's a little bit disappointing? Let me know down below in the comment section. As always, if you'd like to submit your own question for an upcoming episode, you can also leave a comment or by sending me a Facebook or Twitter message. But until tomorrow, guys, have a good one and take it easy.